Okay, so I'm getting ready to put my second coat of poly on. My first coat took exactly a half a gallon, so I'm going to go ahead and mix up the rest of this half, and probably going to mix up another one too, just in case this second coat ends up being more. I don't want to have to stop in between and have to mix up a can real quick. Now when you're mixing it, you want to be real careful not to get any air bubbles in this. It's just a real gentle mix. You don't want to shake the can. And probably just stirring it with a paint stirrer is probably the way to go, but you know, this 5-gallon paint can mixer, I just like using it. So I'm just being real easy, getting a good stir on there, making sure it's nice and thin, so it goes on thin to win. Okay, I'm using this watering can to be able to apply the poly in strips, and then I screed it off. And I saw a professional on YouTube using a watering can. He seemed to have a lot better control with it. Maybe it's just from him having time with the tools. But I just cut this end off and made this bigger so I could pour it in there. But I believe his can, the spout was up higher, and then it kind of bowed over a little bit like that. And he was really able to get a nice controlled stream, a little, down where he needed it. And not so much with this. It didn't really work out too well, but it is better than, dipping it into the tray, dipping the applicator into the tray, and then, or trying to just pour it from the can onto the floor. Sometimes you can buy them spouts that go onto a 1-gallon can. Maybe that's the trick. Anyways, this is what I decided to use. I'm using this style of wool applicator, the Applicator and More LTD brand, 100% pure lambskin. It's a 10-inch. It goes onto this style of applicator piece, whatever. It's got the wing nuts on it. I put a paint pole on here so that I could extend it out just in case I needed to reach something. That comes in handy rather than just using your... It's not real easy to control that, to get it even. Last night my wife was doing the pouring, and that was pretty good because I never had to let go of the applicator. I was just able to keep on going. See how hard that is to do? Very hard to get a smooth, even puddle. And you don't want to flood it. That's why it's pretty important to get that technique down. I think it has something to do with the can. If I had a better can, so the spout was more controlled, the pour was a little bit more controlled, I could probably do that better. And I'm doing everything I can to not go over a line I already did. I mean, I overlap my lines, but once I get one screeded out, I try not to go back over it, except for the wet edge of the last one that I did. I also pay attention to the board that I'm on. I try to do my best to keep it straight with the board so it's easy to see where you were before. And then when I lay the stream down, I go right in the center of where my next pass is going to be. And then when my applicator comes, I'm overlapping my last one, and I'm picking up a little bit of the puddle of the stream that I just laid down. And having light at different angles so you can see what you're doing is helpful. When I first started out up against the wall, I really couldn't tell what I had done. And that can be a problem, because you need to see where you've actually applied it so that you know how to overlap the next one. See how I'm turning this in a little bit? I really got a good puddle going on in the front of my applicator, and I don't want it to put a wet edge that way. I want to keep that wet edge this way. So sometimes you can't go straight horizontal like this. You got to turn it a little bit to keep that puddle going in front of you. Very hard to see where you've been. That's a difficult part of it. I mean, you can see it, but you really got to look. Of course, you don't want to step in it. Now, when I just did that, I felt like it kind of dried up in some spots that I didn't get it even. So I'm kind of go over what I just did, just a little bit ahead of it to make sure I get the best coverage, nice even coverage. And it just takes time. This is only the second time I've actually put polyurethane on the correct way. So I'm learning right now, actually. Learning as I go. Which is anybody that's ever done it for the first time, I mean, that's what you're doing. You're learning as you go. And hopefully you don't mess up like I did. I've already stripped my floors twice now because the first coat of polyurethane I put down, I did it wrong. I went against the grain. I used mid-wax high build, which was, to me, not a good idea, it being the first time I ever put polyurethanes down. That stuff really goes on thick, and you really got to know what you're doing. You got to have the right tools. I flooded the floor, basically, with the mid-wax high build polyurethane, and then I tried to spread it out, and it was It never spread out right. It never really cured. I waited a week and it never cured. I ended up going back to the rental place and renting a drum sander, which the first time I did it, I just rented that vibratory sander. But I went back and I rented the drum sander and I stripped everything back down again. And now here I am. Okay, I got the second coat down, and the fumes were getting a little bit. So what I did was I opened up my screen door and this window. Of course, that window over there was open, and it got pretty cold in here. It's probably in the 40s here in Maryland, and a lot of cold air coming across. I got my stocking feet, so I can feel that the floor is really cold. And honestly, it felt like the polyurethane was actually, it loosened up a lot. It got a lot thinner in the cold. I think there's a recommendation that you're not supposed to apply it unless it's some particular, a range of temperature. But I was really able to control it a lot better when the floor was cold. So I don't know if I discovered something or if anybody else has the same experience, but it went on pretty good. This time I used pretty much 3/4 of a gallon, which this is 500 square feet. 1 gallon is for 600 to 700 square feet. So I think I pretty much hit the mark on the Minwax recommendation for coverage. 3/4 of a gallon. I do see when I was doing it, there was a couple spots where I felt like maybe it didn't get on thick enough. A couple dry spots, like the window's kind of jacking it up, but that's actually like a little bit of a spot that doesn't look glazed over when you're looking at it. Not like a nice sheen like this. It's almost like the applicator didn't have any polyurethane in front of it right here at this point, and it kind of skipped over. So time with the tools and time with the applicator and getting good at screeting that stuff across at a consistent coating is definitely takes some skill, and that's why the professionals get paid good money to do it, because they've done it a bunch of times, they've made a bunch of mistakes, they've learned from them. And those are the guys that know how to do it. If you are going to get it done professionally, ask for some references, talk to them about it, have them show you projects that they've done. Ask if there are references that you can actually call, and because you want customers of theirs that say that they're very, very pleased with the work that they did. And it's not just some one truck guy who has a contractor's license, who's insured and says he does hardwood floors. Last week he was doing cabinetry. Now he does hardwood floors. So